As we walk through Easter week together, I'd like us to look this morning at a story found in the Gospel of John. Many of you are familiar with it. It's called Washing the Disciples' Feet. Here Jesus and the disciples are at supper. And Jesus, we are told, rose from supper, laid aside his garments, girded himself with a towel. Then he poured water into a basin and began to wash the disciples' feet. Now, if you were a good host in biblical times, when a visitor came, you provided them with oil to anoint their head, to refresh them as they came in. You gave them a kiss, but primarily you gave them a basin of water to wash their feet. Here we are told the disciples and Jesus are at supper. The basin is there, as is obvious, because Jesus got it. But nobody actually volunteered to wash somebody else's feet. No one was prepared to be servant-hearted except for Jesus. And feet were in evidence at this meal because people didn't sit at chairs, they reclined. So smelly, dirty, grimy feet were very evident as they reclined, and someone's feet were in someone's head almost. And so Jesus gave them an example here of what it means to be a servant. Jesus humbly and very condescendingly washed their feet. This was the job given to the most lowliest of servants in a house. And were the disciples so busy that they wanted to get the best seat at the supper? Did they want to sit nearest to Jesus? All we know is that nobody bothered to pick up the basin and the towel and wash each other's feet. And when Jesus did it, the disciples were astonished. They were shocked that Jesus, their Lord and Master, could actually do something so lowly. In fact, when Peter has his feet washed, he complains. He says, "Not you, Lord, you shall never wash my feet." So Jesus has given us an example here of what it means to be a servant. He says this, "If I then, your Lord and teacher, have washed your feet, you ought also to wash one another's feet." Not long before this happened, Jesus had a visit from James and John, two of his disciples. And they asked him a question. They said, "Lord, will you do for us whatever we ask?" And Jesus said, "What do you want me to do for you?" And they said this, "When you come in your glory or your kingdom, grant that we might sit at your right hand and left hand." In other words, they wanted to be kind of Chancellor of the Exchequer and Foreign Secretary. They wanted a position of power and authority. And Jesus said, "No, I can't give you that." Now, the other disciples were quite annoyed because they dared to put themselves up for this. But this is what Jesus' answer was. He said this, "Whoever would be great amongst you must be slave of all. For the Son of Man also came not to be served, but to serve, and to give his life as a ransom for many." And this is what this week of Easter is about. Jesus being the suffering servant, we call him in Isaiah, the one who sacrificed his life and gave his life for us. The word ransom there is the word you might be familiar with. It's used when an amount of money is paid to release a hostage, or it's from a kidnap situation. Someone pays a price for someone else to be released. And that's what Jesus did this week. As the servant, he gave us an example of what we need to do to be servant-hearted. And he actually went all the way to the cross as God's servant. So this morning, I ask you, as Peter says, clothe yourself with humility. Jesus said on another occasion, the person that exalts himself will be humbled, and he that humbles himself will be exalted. So this morning, let's remember what it is to be servant-hearted. I have heard this week how people have become very servant-like, helping their neighbours, going shopping, getting prescriptions, etc. And 750,000 people have volunteered to help the NHS in this crisis. People are actually realising the need to serve others and help others. Jesus set us as an example. So let me ask you today to humble yourself before the Lord Jesus this morning. As you listen to me, would you be prepared to kneel at his feet and say, "Lord Jesus, come into my life"? Do you know, Peter said here, when he originally refused and didn't want Jesus to wash his feet, he said, Lord, wash me all over. This is what he said. Lord, not only my feet, but also my hands and my head. So the Lord wants to wash our heads, if you like, to cleanse us from those bad thoughts, to wash our feet so we walk in his way, to wash our hands that we might be used for his glory. So this morning, let's humbly come and say, Lord, take my life and let it be consecrated, Lord, to thee. Take my moments and my days, let them flow in ceaseless praise. So as we remember Jesus being a servant of all, let's offer him our lives today to be his servants. Thank you for listening. I'll see you tomorrow as we look at the Garden of Gethsemane. Lord, I just pray this morning you'd help us to serve you as you deserve, like Francis of Assisi said. Amen.